farm in the distance and thinks it's just a regular farm with chickens and stuff. So Ty decides to sneak in, steal a chicken, and prove to my family that I am braver and can also pull my part in the family. But sadly, it's not a chicken farm. It is actually a fox farm. And this, of course, scares Ty very much, and he tries to get away. But sadly, he is mistaken for another fox who has escaped from his cage earlier. So he sadly gets caught and put in the cage. And this is where we meet the other main character, which is Lucas. And Lucas is a red fox who's lived his whole life in captivity. So he knows nothing about the forest or anything about that world out there. He's very imaginative and a very positive character despite his circumstances. But he is very curious about the world outside in the forest, because to Lucas, when he meets Ty, it is very surprising to him that there are actually foxes running around free in the woods, because Lucas has always thought that foxes are only in cages, not free. So this is quite interesting for Lucas. Lucas also has a imaginary friend named Greenie, which is the red little leaf we can see up there. They are Lucas's best friend, and kind of like a little of like a emotional support friend for living a life in the cage the way Lucas has. But yeah, these two meet, and it is for Ty, it is very scary to be suddenly put in a cage and not to be able to be free anymore. So he is naturally very anxious and scared and not understanding what is it the humans want to do with him, because they don't know what it is that happens to the foxes on the fox farm, and neither does Lucas. But as Ty goes on and on about the forest outside, Lucas gets more and more like interested in this world that Ty is talking about, and wishes to help Ty get back home again. And Ty then also wishes to help Lucas escape out of the cage so that Lucas can also experience freedom outside. So yeah, so that's kind of like a short telling of what book 1 is about. But yeah, now I thought I was going to talk a little bit about how did it start. Well, it started actually really, really early. I was very young when I heard about the concept of fur farming, and it was something that I was just very against. I don't like the idea of animals being put in cages for that reason of for fashion and stuff. So I was just very against that. So that's just something that's been with me a long time. And I've also been very inspired by many different movies and comics up to the years, like Lion King and The Secret of Nim and such. And I also, in my teenage years, read a lot of webcomics for a while. Has anyone heard of Black Blood Alliance? No? Oh. Well, one. Black Blood Alliance is a webcomic that's still going. I think it's on hiatus now. But anyway, that is a comic about wolves with kind of so to say, magical abilities. And they do what they can to kind of protect their clan from other dangers in that world. So when I read that webcomic, it was like, I also want to make a fox comic, story about animals and stuff. So. And, yeah, I always like stories about animals with xenofiction, so I always knew that if I was going to make a story, it would be with animals as the main character. Here are some other comics that have inspired me, and here we can see Black Blood Alliance down in the corner there, and other comics that have inspired me and, enjoyed reading as I was growing up. Yeah, let's see. what else? Yeah, of course, movies really inspired me too. So Watership Down was a huge one. I think I saw it when I was 6 years old. Um, and it was one of those movies that I felt took me very seriously. Like the elements in that movie is quite dire, where you have this band of rabbits just trying to survive in the British wilderness, and it was like it was high stakes and you know, life and death situations that I just really that it really resonated with me, and yeah, it just always stuck with me. The same goes with all these movies here, like Animals of Farthing Wood and Lion King and The Secret of Nim. So I also was very lucky that there is a school in Norway, or a folkehøyskole, like a I don't know what that is in English. It's kind of like where you go to a school for a year and you study that thing you really like for a year. Uh, yeah. Um, so they had a line. They had a class for comics. So then I was able to go there for 2 years actually, and got to like work with this story and like yeah. So what I did was just like I had this like idea for like this story with like over time, because like over time there was I tried a few different stories. I had one story that was about a black cat that had bad luck and was trying to get rid of his bad luck, and then one of the side characters was actually Lucas. But then, as I worked with Lucas and found out that kind of I liked, suddenly he had a backstory about where he came from, about a fur farm, and that he and his boyfriend had run away from it. And then that story suddenly got more interesting than the one about the black cat. So then I just kind of skipped that story and jumped into this, and I just sketched a lot to kind of just find my style and see kind of like what I wanted to tell, how I wanted to show it and stuff. So I just, for like 15 years, I was just sketching and doodling and just day in and day out on this story to kind of like figure out how I wanted to do this. And also trying kind of like different mediums. Like I wanted to see if I wanted to draw the comic with like with markers or paint, or if I wanted to do it like digitally, like what worked best for me though. But like during this time, the reason like I spent so long, like 15 years on this story before I started making pages, was because I was afraid I wasn't good enough, and I was afraid that the story wasn't perfect enough. And the simple fact is that there is no such thing as perfect, and if you just keep sitting on a story idea that you really want to tell, but you don't dare to start making pages, then you don't really get anywhere. You don't really learn anything from not actually throwing yourself into it and trying, like, because you learn so much as you go on when making comics. So yeah, but I'll get more into that a little later. Sorry, I didn't realize this was coming now. But yeah, there were a few comics I did in a a little magazine called Good News, where I did some comics with these characters to kind of play around with. Because back in 2011, I think it was, I did go to like there was a publisher that invited me and many other up-and-coming comic artists to talk about their stories. But since Ville Poter was a long story, they were not interested in it, because back then in 2011, they were only interested in like short stories for magazines. So that's why they asked me to make short stories instead. So here's one of those short stories I did with Lucas. So this is some very old pages from that magazine though. So just kind of like, this was also like a way for me to kind of like practice and see, okay, how do I want to show the story? What style do I want? And, you know, that sort of thing. There's some more one-shot pages and stuff. So, okay, now we get to this start. Okay, so the way I work with like, because for me it was very hard to crack that code of like, okay, how do I sit down and actually start making pages that are, you know, can be finished. And because whenever I tried working digitally, like making a page just fully digitally, I kept thinking like, this doesn't look good enough, this doesn't look perfect enough. So to kind of trick myself into making the story like kind of slowly, I started doing this thing where I would try to sketch very roughly what I wanted kind of like the story to look like. And then I would do it on a paper that is quite small, like A5 sized, I believe. And I would kind of just sketch really roughly, kind of like an idea of how it could look like. And another thing that was kind of intimidating for me was doing speech bubbles, because whenever I wrote on these papers and I wrote the dialogue, and then suddenly I realized, oh, I don't like this dialogue, and then I would have to erase it away. It would like smudge and not look good, and that would kind of discourage me. But then I figured out, well, what I can do is I can use post-it notes and draw the dialogue on the post-it notes and place them on the page to kind of just play around with like, okay, where should it be placed and how do they say it? And then it's just easy for me to take it out if I don't like it. So that kind of helped me in like kind of getting the ball rolling about like, oh, actually seeing like the idea of the story in my head coming down, like down on paper. So, and then seeing it like this folder I had, like kind of grow from like very small to like thicker and thicker. That was kind of nice to see that it was actually building to be something. And then when I went to, let's see, yeah, so that's like, this first draft is like very much like how it would look in the beginning, and then you have the finished page there. Yeah, and then it would be like, because I would take this first draft to my publisher, who would then look through the pages, and they liked what it was, and then were like, yes, we'd like to publish this, and that was very cool. And then I had that thing where it's like I went to the publisher, they said they want to publish it, and then I said no to the contract because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to deliver, because I kept doubting myself, like wondering, like, what if I can't do it properly? What if I can't do it right? But then my editor was very sympathetic to that and said that, well, you can try to make the prologue of the comic first and just see how it goes. So then she gave me kind of like a very, a kind of a little loose deadline where she was like, okay, we're in October 2019 now. Can you finish the prologue till 2020, like January? And so it's like, okay, yeah, you can try to do that. So it kind of helped nudge me into like trying to make a page. And the first few pages was hard to start because you're constantly being like, oh man, does this look good enough or not? But then you kind of get into this flow of like, well, if I don't start or if I don't do it, then it's just never going to get better. So I've kind of adapted to the process of like every page I do, I learn something from that page. And if I do like 3 chapters and I go back to chapter 1, and I will see that I have improved, but then it's kind of like, well, that it just shows growth, and I kind of just have to accept the fact that, you know, like things will look better the more you practice, you know. So, but yeah, so I could also show a little bit like how I make a page, like digitally, like. like I mentioned, I like working first with like a traditional medium, like sketching on paper with the post-it notes to kind of figure out the layout and everything. And then when I am happy and satisfied with those sketches, I then go over to an art program called Clip Studio Paint, where I then put down kind of like a sketch digitally how the page should look. So, and this is a different page from book 2, by the way. Yeah. So then I just like start like putting down the panels, and I'm planning on where the speech bubble should be, because another thing that also kind of was a struggle for me was that sometimes it's hard for me to know what the characters are going to say, because in my head when I see the story it's very like animated, and I know what the characters are doing, but what they're talking about, I know the gist of what they're talking about, but I don't know quite how they're going to say it. So at this stage, I pretty much just plan the speech bubbles and make sure that there is space for them, along with the drawings. And then either I put the dialogue in then or later, like because that can always be fixed later. And would also help from also get help from my editors on the speech, on the dialogue and stuff when I'm struggling too. So I start like this, and then when I have a page like this, I then send it to my editors. Like I send them a full chapter and send it to my editors, and they come back with they come back with feedback on what can be improved, or if something doesn't make sense, or if I have to redo the whole thing, and kind of just like feedback. And then and if it's a green light, then I get to go on the next stage, which is line art. And this is my favorite part of making a comic, because the hard part is very much kind of the sketching part, where I try to figure out the placements of everything and such. So now I get to just go over it with another layer and start inking the page. And this is also when I'm able to have like a movie on in the background, because I really like listening to things when I'm working. Like if it's a podcast or a movie or anything, it just helps me focus. So this is one of my favorite parts about in the comic making process. Then it's step 3, which is flatting. Then I just kind of put down the colors I want for the scene to have, and also think about like, okay, what kind of mood do I want the colors to give? Because in this scene we see Lucas seeing his reflection for the first time, because he's lived his whole life in a cage. He's never seen a reflection of himself. He's always been told that he has a green and a brown eye, but he's never seen it. So Titan takes him to a river so that he can actually see his face. So then I'm thinking like, okay, so this is kind of a nice and pleasant scene. So I think about like time of day of like, well, it can be a sunshiny day, to kind of just make it a cozy time. And also think about the weather, like, because you can use like colors and the weather to kind of like enhance your storytelling. So it's like if it's a fight scene, maybe there's a thunderstorm going on, or maybe there's like a sunset or sunrise that makes the colors very red and dramatic. Or if it's a sad scene, maybe it's raining, or it's a cloudy day or something. So that's something I try to think about too when making these pages. And then when I'm done with the flatting, the next step is step 4, rendering, and then I polish the colors. And then that's basically just going in and putting shading and lights on the environment and on the characters, and just to try to get some like life and depth into the worlds to kind of make it, feel like a place that is alive, Um, this is also where I put down the bubbles and figure out the dialogue and place it and try to put it in a way so that's easy for people to know which bubble to go to and who's talking. I also, here is where I also put like expression lines, like or like those swishing, like when Lucas's tail is going back and forth there, I put in like these lines to give the illusion of motion. And yeah, so just kind of give it more life though. And then when that is done, then it is done. Let's see, yes, so. And then I figured like if anyone has any questions about anything, like about this or something, they can ask. So does anyone have any questions? Yeah? An English version? Um, there is a publisher in America that is interested, and they have made an offer, but we haven't settled on a contract yet. So it is, it might happen, but it's not settled yet. But so far, Wild Paws is in Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, and next year it is coming out in Polish. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so so if everything goes to plan, it will come out in Poland in January 2026. So yeah. Any other questions? No questions? Yeah, there's one. Right. That's a very good question. For me, one page takes about like 6-7 hours to do. So and that includes like line art and coloring and like rendering it finished. And these and each book has kind of taken a different amount of time to make. Like with book one, that took me 2 years to make because I also had like day jobs on the side. So and then on the second book, it took a little bit over a year because then I was able to lean more on the comic for income. And then book three, that one took about 1 year, over a year and a half to make. But like I try to keep a very healthy work balance with comic making, so that I work five times a week, 5 days a week, and then the weekend is for relaxing, because taking breaks is also very important when it comes to making art. Because if you're just going to sit at your desk and just draw and draw and draw until you drop, then you're just going to crash out, and you're just going to hurt yourself. So it's so important to try to, when you're making art or it's your job or a hobby, that you take time to remember to like eat, take care of yourself, go for walks, exercise, which is very important. So I try to keep like comic making to like I like to think that like for a work day, I'm like my best hours, I have 4 good hours of work, and then 2 hours of just kind of like like not as good. So it's about like 6 hours a day of work that I do 5 days in a week, and then the weekend is for weekend, playing games or hanging out with friends or doing other hobbies, or just taking a break from the comic work to not meet the wall, crash into the wall and burn out. Yeah. What keeps me going? I really do love making comics, so that helps keep me going. But there are times when I get stuck in the story, and I'm just like, oh, this is the worst thing in the world. I hate this so much. I just want to throw my computer out the window and just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. But the when that happens, then I have learned that it's best to just kind of, when I get stuck like that and I get down on myself like that, I just have to step away and do something else. Like go for a walk, or play a game, or listen to music or a podcast, or do something completely different to kind of get my head out of that negative space. And because usually, especially when I go for walks, I get very inspired by nature. And if I'm struggling with a scene and I see something nice or funny or interesting in the woods or something, that kind of helps gets my brain on, like, instead of just hitting the wall constantly on this one thing, I start, well, what if that happened? What if this happened? And I start like looking ways around the wall. And then it's like, oh, so it kind of it helps open my mind instead of when I get so honed in on the thing that's not working. Hang on. Sorry. Did that answer your question? Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's a very good question, because in the beginning, I'm so sorry about my voice. In the beginning, I tried so hard to write a script, like how it would, like with just text and kind of like how the panel, like describing how the panel looks and stuff. But I just could not do it. It just did not work for me. And I'm very lucky because because for me, that was also one of the reasons I made those like paper, like I started sketching on paper with like Post-it notes and stuff, because that's how because I need to work visually and kind of show what I'm thinking, because I'm not able to sit down and write a script. And there are many, many comic artists who are the same, that cannot write a script. Some do prefer writing a script and then kind of using it to then make their comic. But there are also many who rely just on thumbnails, that they need to draw it down and then show it to the editor. And I had the impression that publishers and editors do not want that at all, that they want a script. And some publishers are like that. But the one I have now at TNT with Tony Tornes and Tormod Böckling, they are very open to that. So because they are like, comic artists are very different. So some come with scripts and some come with detailed thumbnails. Some thumbnails are just stick figures and some are a little bit more rendered. But so they're very open to that. So you don't have to write a script if that doesn't work for you. If writing it in a script form first works for you, then that's great. And if not, then you can do it like visually, like with just drawing what you're thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes, I would love that. Sarah is the MVP. She's been taking such good care of me. Thank you so much. Yes? I actually haven't gotten much hate. Yeah. I haven't gotten any hate as of yet that I can at least remember. Everyone has been very kind and optimistic and cool about the comic. Like even like with what is like comic critics who have reviewed Villeput, like they haven't torn it to shreds or anything. They have given it kind of like positive. They're like, oh, this is good, and some things that can be improved, So I haven't really gotten much hate, so that's very nice. Any other questions? Yeah. 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 No, like because I always knew that I really wanted to tell a story about like when I first thought up these characters, I really wanted to tell their love story during this story because like the comic is, you know, mostly about like what happens to a fox who's lived his whole life in captivity and kind of like the mental health issues that comes along with it. But I also wanted to kind of tell this queer story about these two queer foxes meeting each other and helping each other. And I try to just there's nothing really I'm trying to shy away from with that or either the gender identity. Like Lucas, I can say a little bit, is questioning his gender identity as well, trying to figure out who he really is. And both my editors have been very open to that when I explore that in the comic. So there's nothing really I'm shying away from. I feel I just try to be as honest with them and the characters as I can. So yeah, did that answer the question? Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah. Like kind of like what to think about when making a page, kind of like yeah, yeah. Let's see. I can try to look a little bit like mm, these are not maybe the best examples, but when when I plan out like a layout for a comic, I try to think a bit about like being good at remembering to change like the camera view to make the page look more interesting. So here, this isn't quite the best example because like here we do have one shot here that's away, so that we see the scene of because if you introduce the characters to a new scene, it's a very good idea to start with a wide shot of the area they're in, because then you give the reader an idea of like, okay, this is what it looks like. They're in the forest. There's a river there, and then when you then zoom into their faces and stuff, because then the reader already knows the area we're in, then they can fill in the blanks. So, like for example, we see here that behind Lucas and Ty here at the top, there are trees in the back, but then we see on the next page there is blue skies, but that's something you can do because we already know they're in the woods. So then the reader kind of fills in the blank of like where they are. And then there is something that I also get a lot of like kind of like my editors grab me in the shoulder to kind of remember, and it's called like beware of talking heads, where it's like you can see these four panels here where it's like you see them just like they're actively doing something here, so it's fine, but sometimes uh, it's easy for me to fall into a trap where the characters are talking about something and then they are just heads in each panel just talking, and that is called like talking heads, and which can be very boring. So then it's a good idea when, for example, if you have a scene where characters need to say something of like exposition or explain something, that you make the scene kind of interesting to look like. Like you change the camera angle, like with a bird's eye view, looking down at the characters or looking at the view, or like just like you make the place look more interesting, and then remember to kind of think that you can use like the whole uh, close in on the head or close in on the eyes or the mouth, like kind of like make it visually interesting. Um, So that is something I'm still continuing to learn as I make every book. Like, kind of try to think more like, because in the beginning it was very much like, okay, just straight on looking at the foxes, and mostly around the like head and shoulders area. So what I would say is just kind of like play around with like camera angles, and also I don't have an example of it right here because these are older pages, but you see these like panel squares. You can also kind of play around with making that more interesting, where they're a bit more askew to kind of give more action. For example, in action scenes where they're being chased or something, I like if I have one panel of them running away from the animal they're running from, and then I can play around with like panels like to show like which way we're going. Like if a panel is like I don't have a visually to show here, but like a panel can like be skewed like this, so that we know we can go this way to the next one, and then you can. It's very much like individual. Like you can play around with how you want to do it. So yeah. So the best advice I can give there is read a lot of comics and see how different comic artists do it, because there's actually a comic I'm reading right now called I think it's Zoya's Core or Zoya's Stjärna. It came out very recently, and those pages are so breathtakingly and beautiful. So I would definitely recommend like reading comics and seeing how different comic artists go about layouts and stuff, and take pointers from them and bring it into your work. That has helped me a lot, like with like trying to, you know, try to be more, see how much further I can take like the comic and like make it more visually interesting. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Ty and Lucas. Uh, they are actually. I like to say that they both are me, but split in half. It's like, uh, I take a lot of inspiration from myself when it comes to Ty and Lucas, and where I've given Ty very much my nervousness and anxiety and like being afraid of a lot of things. And with Ty, with Lucas, I've given very much kind of like my, I think like creativity and playfulness, and also innocence in him, and very much the questioning and curiosity of the world. So I like to think that with these two, they are me but split in half, basically. Yeah. Thank you. I hate it. Fuck it. Yeah. Oh, AI makes me so angry. I'm sorry. But you know that uh, something that my editor told me about, because the imprint publishing TNT that I'm with right now. They actually get pitches from folk who use AI and are like, here, I have a comic idea. Here, look at this. And it's just this AI bullshit crap art. And I'm so happy that my editor is just looking at this, and then they send back a message like, no, we don't, we don't want this. And that makes me very happy to hear, because I see, in commercials and stuff that people are using AI, and it just makes me so angry. There was also a story. A friend of mine was hired to do some comics for an organization, and then she had like sketch ideas for them and brought it back to them like, here, this is what I'm thinking. And they were like, oh, cool. So I tried using AI, and it gave me some great ideas that I want to show you. And it was just like, just like the audacity. Um, but luckily, on the next meeting, apparently the people at this organization had been like, "Oh, don't do that. Don't use AI," so that they backed away from that, and then yeah, continued to work on the comic with my friend though. So yeah, but no, AI is sucks. I don't like it. um, any other questions? Yeah. Hmm. That is a good question. Um, I think it's mostly actually in book um, 3 I've done. Well, no, no. Yes, there are some fun Easter eggs and stuff. I like to sometimes put characters from other comics into my work. For example, in book 1, at the end, there are 2 mouse characters in the background, and those 2 mouse are from a comic that my boyfriend made called Mellow and Strange. And also on the TV screen in the background in book 1, there is also a TV showing the Dragon's Eye, on the TV, which is my friend Charles Sandmel's comic. I also like putting friends and family's pets in the comic. Like, for example, in book 3, I put my brother's dogs in the comic when they're in the city, and also my dogs. And I also put your cats in the background too. And also, one of the Lynx's kittens is also heavily inspired by your persona. So it's like a albino Lynx baby. So I like to do that, like putting in friends and families, like pets and dogs in the background, or comic characters in the background when it works. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that is very true. Like, and I didn't realize that while making the story that that was what it was kind of turning into. But it actually is. Yeah. So yeah, that's very true. Uh, uh, this story has been very much, it's a very personal story for me about kind of like coming to terms with things I've been through in my life, and self-acceptance, and learning, figuring out my identity and like my gender and sexuality and stuff. So it has been like, while making this, it's been very much a crutch in my life, trying to figure myself out while exploring my thoughts and feelings with these characters. And the fact that these 2 are kind of split, are both me, and then they kind of fall in love with each other, is kind of like me kind of like learning to accept and love myself. So yeah, it's very true. Let's see. What time is it? Okay. Any more questions? Yeah. This is totally imagination. Like, the story is set in Norway, but I for the most part, I've just kind of made up places where the characters are. My plan actually was to, when the story it gets to the human town, I actually wanted to use a town called Drøbak as inspiration for it. But the problem was I moved to Finland that time, so I referenced pictures of Drøbak. So that's one thing I'm a little sad about, that I never took the time to do, like take a trip to Drøbak and take the pictures I wanted to just have, like, oh yes, this town is based on Drøbak. So what I've done is very much just kind of like mostly gone from my own memories and head, with like places in the woods and stuff, and also, like, the town is very much like it's a fictional place, but kind of like, but inspired by Norwegian towns. So yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought about that too late. I was like, gosh darn it, I should have done that. Um, any more questions? Yeah. 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 That's a good question. Like I try to kind of change where they are, kind of like when they first get out into woods, it's very like generic woods. But then I kind of through the story, I have them go to like different places. Like for example, they start in the woods and then they have to go on top of a mountain to see the view of the forest, to see which way to go, and then you kind of just having just showing them like actively, being in a forest, climbing up a mountain, swimming through a river. Also, I also use time to also kind of show the process of them moving, where it's like it goes from summer to fall to winter. I kind of like doing that, and also kind of like changing like what the forest looks like. Like one area might be like with pine trees, another place might be with birchwood and like flowers on the ground. Kind of just like I like to pick and choose. Kind of like, okay, we're going into this scene. What do I want? What is something in the forest that can kind of enhance the scene a bit, or maybe something that just looks nice, you know? So there are like many many ways to draw a forest. So yeah, so I just kind of just play around a bit with that, like an area where there's a lot of flowers on the ground. Maybe there's a lot of stone or mountain area, or like different tundra. Maybe there's like what's it called? A swamp area. Kind of like just play around with that. Yeah. Let's see. Any more questions? Hmm? Uh, I don't think there's any more questions. Then I don't really have any more for right now. Um, but anyway, thank you so much for coming, and I will be if you have any other questions, you can come to my table at the dealer's den and ask me there, or if you have like a book you want me to sign or something, I'm there as well. So yeah, and so thank you for coming here and listening to me babble, and thank you so much.